गोविंद हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव।
नमस्ते, गुड मॉर्निंग, स्वागत आपका। नमस्ते, गुड मॉर्निंग, स्वागत आप सभी का। आज हम 16 चैप्टर को पढ़ने वाले हैं। 25 सितंबर हमारी study थी। हम 16 चैप्टर पढ़ गए हैं और सिर्फ 2 दिन और बाकी हैं हम लोगों के पास गीता सुनने के लिए। अब एक अनाउंसमेंट मैं करना चाहता हूँ कि जो 18 चैप्टर है वो थोड़ा बड़ा चैप्टर है, तो उसको हमें खुशी है कि राम एग्री कर गए एक दिन और के लिए, हम सब के लिए। सो अब हम आगे का कार्यक्रम आज का शुरू करते हैं। मेडिटेशन।
Good morning, everyone. Take our life with of calm and peace. I invoke the blessings of the divine and offer my gratitude for this beautiful gift of life, this gift of body, this gift of all the material possessions that I possess, the abundance, material, sensorial, or family ends. I take a moment to bring all of this abundance to my mind's eye. I now turn my gaze inwards and appreciate the beauty of my inner being. I now bring my attention to the sounds around me and simply notice my ears' ability to hear. I give thanks to my ears for working so well and for allowing me to hear all the sounds that make this moment, and for all the different sounds, words, music, and conversations that I have been hearing and I will be hearing in the days to come. Now I notice my sense of smell. I offer my appreciation to my nose and my olfactory system for letting me smell varied fragrances, aromas, and smell. Without my nose, I would not be able to smell the aroma of my favorite meal or breathe in the ocean air. In this moment, I give thanks to my ability to smell. To my hearts, I now offer gratitude to my tongue and mouth for letting me taste my favorite coffee or tea and the array of food that nourishes my system. With all the flavors of the world, now I notice what I feel with my skin of the air on the paths that are exposed, that the electricity in my heart when holding hands with my soulmate, to the skin that lets me feel the texture of sand at the beach, sense a breeze on my neck. Thanks to the skin for helping me feel my life, and to my eyes, I send waves of gratitude to these magical eyes for letting me see the world around me. Eyes which let me see art, nature, and beauty in all its form. Thank them for all for letting me take in the world around me through the windows of my soul. Take a deep breath and notice how you feel in your heart. Connect to a feeling of expansion in your chest as I truly savor the full spectrum of my senses. Focusing on my breathing, on my inhale and exhale, I offer gratitude to my sense organs for making my human experience so meaningful, vibrant, varied. To my mind's eye, now someone in my life who's easy to love. I see this person sitting in front of me, smiling. Says, I thank him for being in my life. Wherever they are in this moment, they are receiving your gratitude. Share them with love, existing and being a part of your life. My life. Now pick another person. Repeat this with as many people as you like. Choose the first who are coming to my mind, and I thank them for being in life. Now I bring in mind someone who made my life easier, to help me tide over a particular situation. Thank the person for whatever they had done to me to help me out. I thank them for all their help, which made that situation easy of life. Finally, I send my love and gratitude to every single person encountered so far will encounter. I thank them for making my life more interesting and richer. I now take a deep breath and gather all the people in my life, in my heart. I hold them here for a moment and then let this image go, and I come back to my breath. I take another deep breath and connect to this moment. I now open my eyes and offer my gratitude for everything in my present that is holding space for me meditating right now. I give thanks to my circumstances, livelihood, which gives me the chance to sit in stillness and be grateful, to my health and physical capabilities that makes it possible for me to sit quietly and improve my outlook and well-being, to the silence, the calm, the life, the love, the tears, the joy, and everything in between. I am grateful. With this, I now take a final deep breath and smile and bring to my heart in prayer shape, folding, and seal my meditation with this gesture of respect and devotion. Notice how I feel, and I set the intention to bring this gratitude forward into my life from this moment onwards. Welcome back.
Thank you, Swati, for that divine experience. Good morning, Shubhodaya, Namaskara. Welcome, welcome to this continuing journey of ours. We are today on chapter 16, and this is known as the Daiva Asura Sampada Vibhaga Yoga, which means that Krishna is now going to talk to us about at length the two aspects that live within each of us, the Daivik aspect and the Asuric aspect, which means the enabling aspect and the non-enabling aspect. One of the things very interestingly is that to make a point, sometimes Krishna actually goes and gives a lot about the counterpoint, and we need to understand this aspect of the Gita because there is a point and there is a counterpoint to prove the point. Okay, so there's a lot that he actually does in the Gita, which is also about the counterpoint, so that he can educate Arjuna about what is needed to be done. Now, one of the things, I'd like to clarify two things up front today. The first thing is that you must remember the context of the Gita. The context of the Gita is to get Arjuna ready to fight. He has to complete his Svadharma, which is to take battle. So by no means is the Gita a pacifist treatise. it is never meant to be a treatise which is into escapism, or which is into not doing what you need to be doing, or retiring into the Himalayas, or retiring into the woods. By no means is the Gita anywhere close to that. Remember, the setting is in the war, and the setting is very clear. Arjuna, get up, pick up your weapons and fight, because that is what you have to do. You have to vanquish your enemies. So if ever in the last 15 days we've got this kind of a thought that the Gita is all about pacifism and not doing what you need to be doing, and retreating into a shell. No, he has clearly enunciated this in many, many ways, that look, when you have to do what you have to do in your life, please, for God's sake, go and do it. And that's a message which is very, very clear. Of course, he talks about the fact of how to do that. And he says you should do this with bhakti, you should do this with devotion, you should do this without getting carried away by the play of opposites. Don't get carried away by the manifestations of your outcome, and therefore don't get attached to the fruits of those outcomes that you will get. All of this is to help us stay the course. All of this is not meant to be a pacifist. One more clarification I'd like to give is, working on your Svadharma is the hard option in life. Keep this in mind. Our comfort zone will make sure that you continue to do what you want to do in your life. That is our comfort zone. That is what we've grown used to. And the tough part is to come out of that comfort zone and to do things that are not in your comfort zone. That is your Svadharma. So the day you come out of your comfort zone and you're doing things that are inconvenient, you're doing things that are difficult, and you're choosing those hard options in life, that is when you know that, yes, I'm well and truly on my way of achieving what is my Svadharma. Please keep these two things in very, very key points, because it is these two issues that are going to lay the foundation for the next 4 days, which is chapter 16, 17. And Anurag just mentioned to you that it is a long chapter, 78 verses, sorry. And what happens in that is that there is one part of it that we need to do on one day, and the other part we can do another day. So we will extend this till Friday. Instead of closing this on Thursday, we will actually do this on Friday too. So let's pick up threads where we left off the last time. In the last chapter, if you remember, we have a statement that Krishna makes to Arjuna and to all of us, that knowing this most secret science, this guhyatamam shastram idimuttakam, he says, with this, you will now become wise, and you will accomplish purpose in life. You will accomplish your Svadharma in life. That is something which I can assure you. And then he talked, a lot about how does a man of wisdom behave? What are the attitudes that drive him? What are the characteristics that drives this kind of a person? And the fact, if you recall, he very clearly mentions that, these are things that we are born with. These are there within us. So this chapter in many ways actually captures all of this and brings it all together for us. So how do we ensure that these enabling thoughts come our way? How do we make sure that it is these enabling thoughts that will help us move in our life? Okay. So I want you to remember one very, very important point. Okay. That when you're working on some aspect of life, there are obviously going to be these two things that will come in conflict. One is an enabling thought, and another is a thought that may not be very enabling to you. How do we actually figure out a way of balancing both and then picking those enabling thoughts to go ahead and do what we want to do? One more background to all of this. If you recall, I've been reiterating one important fact, that it is our conditioning. It is our conditioning from childhood, from the way we studied, from the school that we went to, from our parents, from the society that we lived in, the environment that we lived in, all our experiences in life that has brought us to where we are right now. And it is this conditioning that gives rise to a certain thought process in our minds. And it is this thought process that will lead to actions. And it is those actions that will then lead to a certain kind of outcomes, and those outcomes will lead to results. So keep this tree in mind all the time, that if you were to look at the kind of results that you're getting right now, it is because of the many outcomes that you've had in your life. And those outcomes, as a result of the actions that you've taken, those actions are entirely driven by your thought process. And it is this thought process that we need to look at. Can we do anything about our conditioning? Unfortunately not. I don't think there is anything that we can do as far as our conditioning is concerned, because that is in the past. So let's park it there and leave it at that point of time. But we can certainly do a thought override today on what we want to do in life. Okay. Now, of course, if there is a serious problem that somebody has, then I think you need to go and check it out. You need to go to a good counselor and get counseled. But for the normal people like you and me, I think it is important for us to understand that we can do a thought override, and it is this thought override that we will examine today. What should be done and how can it be done? So let's get into this. Let's pick up the threads on this particular chapter. It's a beautiful chapter. It's a small chapter. It's 24 verses, but it's a power-packed chapter again, because he is talking about some very, very interesting things. So we will go through it, and then we will come back on how can we actually give rise to those enabling thoughts in our life, in everything that we do. So Srini, with your help, we will go through verse 1, 2, and 3. First 1, then 2, then 3. And thankful to IIT Kanpur and to Swami Brahmananda ji for this.
षोडशोऽध्यायः श्रीभगवानुवाच भयं सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः ज्ञानयोगव्यवस्थितिः दानं दमश्च यज्ञश्च स्वाध्यायस्तप आर्जवम्
श्री भगवान बोले, भय का सर्वथा अभाव, अंतःकरण की ज्ञान के लिए योग में दृढ़ स्थिति, सात्विक दान, इंद्रियों का दमन, यज्ञ, स्वाध्याय, कर्तव्य पालन के लिए कष्ट सहना, शरीर मन वाणी की सरलता।
Verse 2, Ashwini.
अहिंसा सत्यमक्रोधः त्यागः शान्तिरपैशुनम् दया भूतेष्वलोलुप्त्वम् मार्दवम् ह्रीरचापलम्
Srini, please change the slide. Verse अहिंसा, सत्य भाषण, क्रोध न करना, संसार की कामना का त्याग, अंतःकरण में राग जनित हलचल का न होना, चुगली न करना, प्राणियों पर दया करना, संसार विषयों में न ललचाना, कर्म करने में लज्जा, चपलता का अभाव।
तेजक्षमाधृतिः शौचम् अद्रोहो नातिमानिता भवन्ति सम्पदं दैवी अभिजातस्य भारत
तेज, प्रभाव, क्षमा, धैर्य, शरीर की शुद्धि, वैर भाव का न रहना और मान को न चाहना। हे भरतवंशी अर्जुन, ये सभी दैवी संपदा को प्राप्त हुए मनुष्य के लक्षण हैं।
So let's see what he is telling us. And the interesting part of this whole process, the interesting part of what he starts off with, and there is a lot of meaning to this. There is a lot of meaning as to with each of these particular words that he picks up. The first thing that he tells us is fearlessness. So and just to go back to what we talked about earlier, that you must be fearless in what you want to do, because when you're working on your Svadharma, obviously the thing that you're doing at that point of time is to figure out how are you going to achieve what you want to achieve, even if there is going to be some opposition that may happen to come your way. Don't get worried about that. be fearless completely. The second thing that he talks about is purity of the heart, being completely true to what you want. The third thing he talks about being steadfast in wisdom and knowledge. Okay, that you need to be steadfast in whatever you're doing. The point is that the wisdom that you have, whatever it is be, you can never have it as something that I know everything there is to know about something. I'm completely knowledgeable. I'm completely a wise person. That is not going to happen in life. But whatever it is that you have, be steadfast in that particular wisdom that you've got. The ability to give, to have charity. Okay, not to be, charity is to have that selflessness within you, the ability to give, to have self-control, to perform those sacrifices that you need to perform, which is to continue to perform that sacrifices which will help you in terms of sustaining the entire ecosystem. Study of the scriptures, the Vedas, what is right, what is wrong, study of that. Practicing austerity, okay, again coming back to simplicity. And finally, uprightness or straightforwardness. He says these are the 9 things that he first lists out. So in all, he lists out about 26. The next one he talks about is causing harm to no one. How can you adopt a win-win approach in your life? Okay, is it possible to be, to have a win-win kind of a thought process, to be truthful, to have an absence of anger, to make sure that there is a certain spirit of sacrifice and renunciation, okay, to give up, to be peaceful, to be calm, to be without deceit, okay, which means not being slanderous, right? Compassionate to all, not being covetous, being gentle, being modest, not being fickle. All these are signs of a great person, all signs of strength. And then he goes on to explain boldness, how a person who spreads light, being patient, forgiving, all right, be having the fortitude to be consistent in life, to make sure that you're consistent in whatever, to be pure, to have no enemy hatred in the world. Finally, the last one, which is absence of pride and humility, which is the absence of conceit. Okay, so it's very interesting that what Krishna is telling us is that, look, it starts with fearlessness, but it ends with humility. Just because you are fearless, you will be able to approach whatever you want to do in your life. But at that point of time, keep this in mind, that when you're fearless, you will achieve what you want to achieve in your life. But that way is to do it with a lot of humility. So you start with fearlessness and you end with a lot of humility. Now, it's very interesting if you take these 26 different aspects that Krishna is talking to us all about. These 26 aspects that Krishna talks is something which is fantastic. If you're able to figure out a way of practicing these 26 aspects, okay, and a little later what we will do is that we will get down to a very simple aspect. If you want to proceed on your Svadharma, if you want to achieve what you want to achieve in life, then it becomes extremely important to remember 3 or 4 issues. 1, how do you manage yourself? 2, how do you manage the people around you? And 3, how do you manage the work around you? Okay, and we'll come back to that at the end of this chapter, and which of these 26 qualities beautifully fits into 1, managing self, or managing work, or managing people. Now, the issue is this. To each of us, what I would like you to do immediately right now is, you need to figure out saying, which of these 26 can I bring into play on a day-to-day basis? Which of these strengths of mine resonates with me? And look at what he talks about. Each of these 26 is a strength. If we can figure out what our strengths are, okay? And I'd like you to do this small exercise just now, if you can. If you can, if you can think about it, if you can make a note of it, or if you can, put it on your phone or whatever you feel like doing, saying these are the 3 or 5 strengths I have. Can you just list down saying these are the strengths that I've got, okay? And these are the strengths that I bring on a day-to-day basis to whatever I'm doing. Whatever those strengths are, don't worry, is it the right strength? Is it a good strength? Don't worry about all that. Just put down right now thinking, what do you think are 5 strengths that you've got? And we will just see in a minute how these resonate extremely, all these 26 attributes, 26 attitudes that he talks about, how they are within each one of us. So just write down, take your phone, take a piece of paper, take a piece of pen, take a pen, take a piece of paper on the phone, or, whatever that you've got around you. If nothing, just in your memory, just write down saying, these are the 5 strengths that I've got. I'm a terrific communicator, I'm very good at this, or I'm good at that, or I'm a great technical guy, or whatever it is, whatever you think are your strengths, just write down what your 5 strengths are. And I'll show you some magic that Krishna is sharing with us as we just go along in a minute. Okay. So just take that 30 seconds and write down that these are what I think are my top 5 strengths in life. These are my strengths. Okay. Now, if we're done with these strengths that he is telling us, all 20, he shared, of course, 26, and I'll come back and as I said a little later, by the end of this chapter, we'll come back to these 5 strengths that you've written and how you can bring it to use in a day-to-day basis. And then he is giving us the counterpoint. Okay, that look, if these are the enabling attitudes, if these are the enabling thoughts, okay, remember when one of the words that is not understood perhaps is what is an attitude. An attitude is nothing but a habit of thought. Okay, if you keep thinking in a particular way, then that becomes your attitude. Okay, but it's not once, it's not twice, but it is a regular thinking in that particular way. So if you keep thinking of yourself that you're a great person, then that's the kind of attitude that you will develop. If you keep thinking that I have something wrong in me, then that's the kind of attitude that you will develop. So keep this in mind. So having done this, now he takes us into another very interesting area where he says, all right, if these are the enabling thoughts, my friends, what could be those thoughts that are not enabling? Okay, Srini, we'll pick up verse number 4, please.
दम्भोदर्पोऽभिमानश्च क्रोधः पारुष्यमेव च अज्ञानम् चाभिजातस्य पार्थसम्पदमासुरी।
हे पार्थ, दंभ करना, घमंड करना, अभिमान करना, क्रोध करना, कठोरता रखना और अविवेक का होना भी, ये सभी आसुरी संपदा को प्राप्त हुए मनुष्य के लक्षण हैं।
Look at what he is giving us the counterpoint. He says, okay, that's fine. I've given you 26 there. Now, here are the 6 ones that you need to be careful about, that are not enabling thoughts in your life. So he starts off with a very important one, hypocrisy. Okay? Hypocrisy, or being ostentatious in life. Saying something, doing something else, meaning something else, not being in line with what you're doing. This whole business of hypocrisy. Then he talks about arrogance. Okay? That you start believing that I am everything in there is in my life. That you get carried away by those, whatever you've achieved till now in your life. If you recall, some time back, we talked about those manifestations of the outcomes. And if those manifestations of those outcomes make you very conceited, then obviously you're going to become very arrogant in whatever you're doing. Okay? Then he talks about anger. That how come I'm not getting what I'm supposed to be getting? I think I deserve this. Why am I not getting what I'm getting? And then that anger that can come in your way. And then he talks about rudeness, about being harsh, about being rude to people on the way. Okay? Somewhere we develop this. And then finally, he talks about ignorance, which is, of course, his driving theme through the Gita, that it is this ignorance that makes you, cloud your entire judgment. But look at each of these things that he talks about. Amazing. Each of these are what we all, sometimes can come and help you deviate or derail from your path of Svadharma. If you remember, we've been talking about the rate of, retrieval. We've been talking about the fact that there could be an obstacle, the fact that you could get derailed from your path. These are things that can help you do that. One, of being a hypocrite, which means you say something to somebody, you say something else to somebody, you say something else to somebody. Obviously, it's not going to work for you. Arrogance, that I have achieved everything. Conceit that comes with arrogance. And both of these that come when you get into a mode of anger. And when you get angry, obviously you're going to be rude, you're going to be irritable, you're not going to be able to carry people with you. And finally, ignorance of the kind of person that you actually are. And he says these are the 6 that can come in the way of you moving forward on your Svadharma. Be careful, be very, very careful about the fact. And then he assures us, Srini, chapter verse 5.
दैवी सम्पद्विमोक्षाय निबन्धाय सुरीमत माशु च सम्पदं दैवी अभिजातोऽसि पाण्डव।
हे पांडव, दैवी संपदा मोक्ष के लिए और आसुरी संपदा बंधन के लिए मानी गई है। तुम शोक मत करो, क्योंकि तुम दैवी संपदा को प्राप्त हुए हो।
So this is, so obviously he's saying that, these divine qualities, the attitudes that enable are meant for liberation. They are going to enable you to achieve your entire Svadharma. And obviously the demonic qualities, the asuric qualities which are there, they lead to bondage and they don't enable the achievement of your Svadharma. And he assures Arjuna, and through Arjuna he assures us, don't worry, you are born with all these divine qualities. Okay? And here is a very, very important thing in the Bhagavad Gita. This particular verse is a very important verse because he says, look, this is the most important point. The fact that we are born with all those winning attitudes that can help us to enable our achievement of our Svadharma. That is something that he assures us. And he says that, look, these asuric qualities that are there is when we start getting attached to the manifestations of the actions, when we start getting coming to us along our way. Unfortunately, it is those that lead to bondage and that will lead to derailing you from whatever is your higher purpose in life. Now, one of the challenges that a lot of us have, for instance, is that what is my Svadharma? How do I recognize, how do I understand what is my Svadharma? This is all okay, fine. I mean, but it has taken me some amount of time to understand what is my Svadharma. So I think it's very important to understand one very important fact. Some people do it quickly and some people take time. People like Swami Vivekananda or Adi Shankara, these are all people who achieved, who understood what is their Svadharma very early. But there are people who take a long time to understand what they want to do in life. Okay? And we have enough examples. They're 60. At 60, 65 is when they've set up something, but they managed to bring a product or a service that has helped a whole host of people in this world. Okay, some of the examples that I can talk to is this. Like if you see, for instance, not a late blossomer like 60, 65, but somebody who blossomed time but got there eventually in trying to change whatever he's doing. With KFC, Dharma, I'll be late, it doesn't matter. So the point is that there are times that we don't understand what is my Svadharma. And this is the attitude that I want you to conduct and figure out. The reason why I believe that we are not able to figure out what is your Svadharma is this, that somewhere the interplay of these 6 demonic activities that we talked about, hypocrisy, arrogance, anger, it is these that come to cloud our thinking. Not believing that it is this conceit that we talk about. We start believing that this is really, really what we want to do. Obviously, it is not going to enable any kind of action. We are on the verge of Durga Puja right now, and a lot of people will be, a lot of you will be reading the Chandipat, doing the Navaratri. And if you read the Chandipat also of Ma Durga, the entire Chandipat is about how she slays these demons. Okay. Now, one of the ways of looking at a demon is Mahishasura or Chanda or Munda or whatever it is. But then the other way of looking at it is that these are the demons that are there in our mind. So the first two demons that she slays, if you recall in the Chandipat, some of you who have read it, would be Nisumba and Shumba. Okay, Nisumba is nothing but self-depreciation, and Shumba is self-conceit. And then the next one that she slays is Mahishasura, who is nothing but the great ego. And then finally she slays Madhu and Kaitaba, which is too much and too little, the feeling of too much and too little. And finally she slays Chanda and Munda, which is passion and anger. So the entire thought is this, that look, it is these stuff, which is either self-depreciation, self-conceit, the ego, too much, too little, passion, anger. It is these that come in the way of us understanding what is our Svadharma in life. So many times I'm asked saying that, look, what do you think is holding me back from achieving this? I say, listen, just calm down. Cut off all those trappings that come with you. It doesn't really matter what you're pursuing as a vocation right now. Okay? Some of us can pursue a vocation and say that this is part of my Svadharma. It doesn't really matter. But if you can work out what is your Svadharma and can you bring it into whatever you're doing, then you're doing both at the same time. Okay? To some, your Svadharma is your vocation, which is great. But to some, whatever is the vocation that you're pursuing right now, whether it is a historical fact or whether it is something of choice, it doesn't really matter. But can you pursue that vocation, keeping in mind that this is what I would like to do that makes me happy and makes the world happy? So can I pursue that vocation in that way? Then you will start doing what you love, and you will do what you will do what you love, and you love what you do. That is the whole point that Krishna is trying to tell us. Cut out these 5 or 6 manifestations that possibly are not helping you to understand your own inner greatness. He obviously says that, look, there are 2 sides to us. There is this divine aspect and there is this demonic aspect. Which is the one that you're going to allow permission to rise to the top? That is a choice that each one of us has. We have that choice that we can take. Which is the one that we would like to bring to the fore? Would we like to work with those 26 qualities that he talked about, or those 6 or 7 that are holding us back? What are we bringing into play on a day-to-day basis? Okay, that is the question that Krishna asks us. And then we move on now from verse 12 to 19, in which he gives us the counterpoint. You see, all these days he was talking to us, and in all the other chapters, he was saying, this is what a great person looks like. This is what a Sthita Prajna is like. This is what a Gunatita is like. This is what a Jivan Mukta is like. But now let me educate you on who is that kind of a person who's holding himself back, and what are some things that will hold a person back. So what I'm going to do is that I will quickly take you through those verses, which are from verse 7, almost 9. I will take you to those 12 verses, and I'll share with you what happens. So when he says very clearly, I think we've got verse 7, Srini.
प्रवृत्तिञ्च निवृत्तिञ्च जनान विदुरासुराः न शौचं नापि चाचारः न सत्यं तेषु विद्यते।
आसुरी स्वभाव के लोग न प्रवृत्ति को जानते हैं और न निवृत्ति को। उनमें न शुद्धि होती है, न सदाचार, और न सत्य ही होता है।
Right? So here is the point that he's saying about how possibly we get ignorant about what is our Svadharma in life. So he says very clearly, these not enabling, you can substitute the word demonic for enabling thoughts. Okay. When these not enabling thoughts dominate our minds, we don't know what to do. We are plagued with self-doubt. Should we do this? Is this the right thing to do? Can we do this? Can we not do this? And since they plague us with that, they actually make sure that we get into that entire zone of inaction. Because it is this doubt that makes sure that we get into inaction. Why? because we don't understand what is good, what is purity. We don't even understand that. So it is very important for us to allow those daivic, those enabling attitudes that are there within us, because remember, he's told us that look, you're born with them. All of us are born with them. So just to hold this point for a minute, if nobody is born bad, okay, but everybody is born good. Why? Because when you're born, you really are, and this is the name of my company, it's an article of faith for me, we're all born to win. Because if you recall, nobody teaches us to recognize our right parents. Nobody teaches us to say amma or appa or daddy and mummy or whatever it is in our own language. Nobody teaches us to walk. Nobody teaches us to talk. Nobody teaches us to say that I'm happy or I'm unhappy. All these properties that are there, which is, the ability to discriminate, the ability to commit, the ability to say that I'm happy, the ability to cry when you're hungry, all of these are what? These are amazing qualities that each one of us are born with. And it doesn't matter where you're born. You could be born in the poorest hut. You could be born in the richest palace. But you're born with all these divine qualities. So when you're born with these divine qualities, which are enabling, okay, how do we figure out a way of making sure that these not enabling thought processes are kept in check? So how do we recognize who they are? So he goes on to explain a lot to us, and I'll just quickly run them by you. Okay, the first is, when you get into that kind of a thought process, you start believing in some very important things. The first thing that you start believing in is that maybe there is no God, maybe there is no truth in this life, maybe there is no morality in this world. Let me go and grab whatever is possible. Let me go and take whatever is available in the world. Let me not think about whatever. These are people who have, insatiable desires. They're full of hunger. They're full of hypocrisy. They're only transaction oriented. They're not relationship oriented. So two very important things in life, one is sustainability, the other is scalability, are completely given a go by. Okay, they may reach a position in life by which sometimes some of these people you have no option but to deal with. But the point is, this is not something that you're going to be happy dealing with them. And they've got too many worries, right? Because they're bound by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of expectations. They are bound by all the role plays in the world. I'm a father, therefore I have to behave like this. I'm a mother, I have to behave like this. I'm a son, I have to behave like this. I'm a son-in-law, I have to behave like this, etc., etc., etc. And they're bound by all these expectations in the world. And all the role plays that the world imposes on you is what you're going to be doing it. And you're constantly trying to flaunt what you have. The fact that you worked for it is great, but there is no need to flaunt what you've got. The wealth that you've got is fantastic. It's great. Nothing wrong with it. You must work for it. You must create that you can. But there is no point in trying to figure out that I have done everything that I have done. So this feeling of that I am wealthy, I am rich, I am of a high birth, all of these feelings that come, they come from these particular kind of the qualities that he talks about, the demonic or the asuric qualities. And what happens then? If you recall, he ends that whole thing. He starts with hypocrisy and he ends with ignorance. Like he started with fearlessness and ended with humility. He starts hypocrisy and ends with ignorance. And what are you going to get ignorant about? You are going to get to a situation where you're so deluded by your ignorance that you get trapped into being that is the way that you need to be living in life. How can you then work on what is your Svadharma? How can you then work on what is it that will give you the happiness that you want? How can you then work in a way that you can make the whole world happy with whatever you're doing? Obviously, you can't. And therefore, he very clearly tells us this, that, when self-conceit, when arrogance, when you vain, okay, you start becoming, you have, will detract you and deal you. he ends this whole section with verse 3. Srini?
अहङ्कारं बलं दर्पं कामं क्रोधं च संश्रिताः मामात्मपरदेहेषु तद्विषन्तोऽभ्यसूयकाः.
You have a challenge with your bandwidth, Srini?
Yeah, it looks like, but I cannot stop this.
Are you having some problem?
Yeah, I'm having some problem.
Not to worry, not to worry. Anurag, will you read that out for us?
हाँ जी। अहंकार, बल, दर्प, काम और क्रोध के वशीभूत हुए पड़ने वाले ये लोग अपने और दूसरे के शरीर में स्थित अर्थात परमात्मा से द्वेष करने वाले होते हैं।
So when you get blinded by the ego, okay, you become so egoistic. You start thinking that I am the most powerful person on earth. Okay, I become insolent. I become full of lust. I become full of anger. Obviously, these are not qualities that are going to help you. Okay, and then he says very clearly, these people get to a stage when they ignore the higher self, when they ignore the Purushottama within. If you recall in the last chapter, we said it is that Purushottama that, a small part of which comes into the Jivatma and then comes into the Jiva. So what happens is that when all of these baser emotions, unenabling come into play, obviously you're going to start forgetting the divinity within you, the higher self that is residing within you. And you get more and more and more carried by the sense objects that are by your body, the mind, and what is the interplay between the body and the sense objects that you've got. And therefore, he says that, look, these are people who are deluded completely. And when you get deluded, obviously you're not going to get anywhere there. Can we pick up verse number 21, Shrini? Is it possible to show it to us? Just do the share screen, if it's okay.
अहङ्कारं बलं दर्पं कामं क्रोधं च संश्रिताः मामा विविधं नरक.
Okay, Shrini, don't worry. Just show us the slide and Anurag translation and just put on the forms. Yeah, go ahead, Anurag.
काम, क्रोध और लोभ
तस्मात्
Yeah, Anurag.
Doesn't matter, Shrini. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
काम, क्रोध और लोभ ये आत्मनाश के त्रिविध द्वार हैं, इसलिए इन तीनों को त्याग देना चाहिए।
There is this recurring theme. If you remember last time I said, that he keeps repeating some of his themes again and again and again, just in case we missed a point. If you recall the last time I said, there is this whole research that's been done that you need to hear it 6 times before it actually sinks in. Therefore, there are these, he talks about these 3 gates to hell. And if you recall, I said, in Indian, in our scriptures, it's very clearly written that if you get kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, which is, kama is desire, right? Uncontrolled desire leads to anger, and that anger leads to greed. Okay. And when you have that, it can lead to moha, which is attachment, and mada, which is jealousy, matsarya. Okay. All of these things can detract you from what you want to get to in your life. And therefore, this is a reiteration saying that, look, while you're born with these divine qualities, don't allow yourself to peg it down. Okay? Then he goes on to explain in verse number 22, you need to conquer these baser emotions of your life. Okay? Because if you do, then you're actually going to be able to work on what you want to work in your life, right? And he very clearly says that, look, if you don't follow these principles laid down in the scriptures, what do the scriptures tell us? That lead a life by which you can activate your higher self, you can bring into play all that you want to do. Srini, can we show verse number 24, if it is possible? 24, Srini, can go to 24. Yeah. Anurag?
इसलिए तुम्हारे लिए कर्तव्य और अकर्तव्य की व्यवस्था अर्थात निर्णय में शास्त्र ही प्रमाण है। शास्त्रोक्त विधान को जानकर तुम्हें अपने कर्म करने चाहिए।
Okay. So if you recall, when he talks about the scriptures here, he's talking about that royal secret that he shared with us some time back. Okay, saying that, look, I've shared this secret, this wisdom, this knowledge with you. Now try and get back to that again and again and again, Arjuna, because if you can, then what you're going to do is that you're going to make sure that these qualities that I said that are important are kept in check, and at the same time, you allow those enabling qualities to actually come to the fore. So he exhausts us, saying that, look, we've got this entire guideline for you. Now go ahead and do what you think. Do what is the right thing for you to do. Now, I asked you to do a small exercise. Okay, I asked you to do a small exercise and said, why don't you list down what are your strengths? Okay, what are the strengths that you've got? Now, I'm going to share with you something interesting. You can take a look at whatever you wrote down yourself. You don't have to share it with me. But I can assure you that all the strengths that you wrote, are part of your thought processes. Okay? They're all thought processes related, all the strengths that you wrote. And I'll tell you something more interesting. Okay? If you look at these 26 qualities, right, and maybe you can do this too, you can divide some of those strengths into how you manage yourself. And you can assign some of those strengths into how do you manage people. And you can assign some of those strengths in how do you manage the work that you do. And this is Krishna's message to us, saying that, look, whatever you want to achieve in your life, your Svadharma, you need to do three things. Obviously, manage yourself is a big thing. And he lists out these things. He says, how do you manage yourself? So what are the things that are important to manage yourself? He starts by saying, having no fear. The fact that you need to be completely fearless. He says you need to be pure, you need to be true, which means you must have that clarity of thought on what you want to achieve. You must be established in wisdom and steadfastness. Don't allow yourself to don't allow yourself to move here and there. Be steadfast in your purpose in whatever you're going to do. Be a giver. Have that mentality that I want to share what I have. Okay? That if my Svadharma is to create wealth and another 100,000 people around me, then great. Do it with that purpose. Not that I'm going to salt everything away. Have self-control. Don't allow yourself to be swayed by the play of opposites. Then he talks about being upright, being truthful. Okay? To a lot of us, I'm sure you will agree that truth is a great weapon to have in your armory. Because if you're truthful, then you never need to look behind your back. You never need to look beyond your shoulder and say, what did I tell somebody at some point of time? Okay? The fact that you should have no anger, because anger is something that will completely derail you from what you want to do. You should be gentle, you should be modest, you should be without any fickleness in life. And then he talks about being bold, being clear, having the purity. And finally, the last one, he says being humble. Okay? If you see these 13, they're all about how can you manage yourself? How do you manage yourself? How do you manage? What is the self-talk that you do? So do you have to practice all 13? No. Can you choose 2? Can you choose 3? that best suit who you are from your strengths perspective. So when I asked you to list down your strengths, just tick off some of these that come closest to what I asked you to do, and then you're well on your way. And then he talks about how do you deal with people? How do you deal with others? Which is very important. How do you build a great team? You need to build a great team. You can't do everything on your own. You need to have a team working with you, whether it is a team in the office, whether it is a team within the, within Tangent or 41ers or Roundtable or wherever, whether it is the family that you're going to be living with. How are you going to manage that? Okay. And he talks about the following. Again, take a look at what you've written down as my strengths and see if some of these come close to what you've written. Causing harm to none, which means adopting a win-win policy, that I want to carry people with me. I want peacefulness, which means I'm going to be calm. Okay. I'm going to operate without any deceit. I'm not going to thug somebody out. I'm going to share my credit with people. So if somebody does something great, fantastic. Let's honor those guys. Let's call them. Let's reward them. Let's recognize them. Okay. Then he says, you be compassionate, be kind. Not everybody can operate at your speed. It's perfectly all right. But can you start thinking, saying, okay, I accept that you can't work at my speed. But then can I be compassionate? Can I help you to get to that speed? Right? Having patience, very important quality. We are running at a pace of 100 kilometers an hour. We want the whole world to run at 100 kilometers an hour. It's not possible. You've trained yourself to run at 100 kilometers an hour. The world does not. And the world cannot run at that pace. So have the patience to work with them. Sometimes you need to go back to their pace at 10 kilometers an hour and then slowly get the whole speed going to 100 kilometers an hour. And more importantly, no enmity. He says, don't have any grudges. Don't hold the past, that in the past this person didn't do something and therefore in the future also this person can't do something. And he talks about these 6 beautiful qualities on how do you manage yourself, how do you manage others. And then finally, how do you manage the work that you do? And he's got something fantastic. He says, whatever you do, perform it from a sustainability perspective. When he says perform sacrifice, that is what he means. How can you perform things in a sustainable way? That whatever you do, can you sustain the work that you're doing? When he says the study of scriptures, he says, can you become a lifelong learner? Can you learn all your life? Can you make that a lifelong learning experience? Saying that, look, I want to learn something new every time. When he says purifying austerities, what is he saying? Again, he's saying that, look, perform things in a way by which you bring simplicity into your world. Okay? Knowledge. Can you set up a system around you, whether at family or your work or within your association or whatever it is, by which people can share the knowledge that they have? Operating thing from a position of sacrificing, of self-sacrifice. Okay? Without any covetousness, that I want to grab everything that comes to my way. And finally, consistency. Being transparent, being consistent. So look at the beauty of this particular chapter that he has talked to us. He's given us these 3 absolutely beautiful divine buckets of saying, this is the way you manage yourself, this is the way you manage people, this is the way you manage work. So my friends, can you choose 2 from this, 1 from this, 2 from the... Can we start getting these 5 or 6 working for us? Because that is the thought override that we need to do. Because once we do that particular thought override, then within our mind, within our heart, there will be no place for kama or krodha or lobha or moha, mada or matsarya. There will be no place for that at all. Because what we will do at that time is that we are going to make sure that in our entire thought process, we don't allow these baser emotions, these not enabling thought process to rise. And therefore, can you prevent them from coming? No, they're part of you. They're part of your conditioning. When you will get angry, when you will get covetous, nobody can stop us. But if you are conscious of the fact that these are the strengths that I have, and can I start playing to my strengths consciously all the time, then you can make sure that these not enabling thoughts are going to be in check and you can do whatever you want. So he ends this entire chapter with verse number 24 when he says that, look, Allow the scriptures. What are the scriptures? Allow what is the right thing to do. Allow these experiences to guide you. Because once you do that, you will then perform all the actions that need to be done as per those guidelines laid down, which is the right thing to do, and you will achieve your Svadharma. So with this, we end chapter 16, a wonderful chapter, beautiful, very, very action oriented. Now, you're going to get more and more and more into taking action on what you're going to be doing. This is chapter 16. Om Tat Sat. We're now open to any suggestions, any thoughts, any queries, any questions. Please do ask me. And yes, please keep those 5 strengths that you've got. Keep working on them, because these are your strengths. There's nothing called a right strength or a wrong strength. These are strengths, period. Okay? So you got those 5, 6, 7, work with those strengths. Encourage your kids to work with their strengths. Encourage your teams to work with those strengths. And then you'll have everybody working with you in your pursuit of your Svadharma. Thank you very much.
कोई सवाल?
I want to ask something.
Please, Yashma, go ahead.
Ramji, what you said, that hypocrites, people say one thing, they do one thing. Don't we in our day-to-day life and in today's world, you find maximum people are like that only. Like there's never one-faced person. You can never bank on people who will actually say something to you and actually mean that and actually do that also in life. And most of these people give you so much gyan. So how do you relate? I mean, how do you be like that a person and relate to these people like that on a day-to-day life?
So recognize them, no, Rishma. Recognize that.
You can try and help yourself to be that from now onwards. Let's say that's the learning of what we learned today. But how do you deal with, because most people are like that and you are going to come across all these people. It's not like you're not going to come across them. But it's very difficult to believe in people who are most of the times who you come across. And it's very difficult to trust people also, because you really don't know. Most of them are today on that level only, that they speak one thing, they do one thing, they have something else in their mind.
So the answer is there, no, for you, Rishma. Are these people going to help you get to your Svadharma or not? If they are, then you have to deal with them. If they are not, obviously they're not, right? Because they're going to say something before you, they're going to say something behind you. So they're not going to help you in your journey. You can't cut them off from life, correct?
Yes.
You just have to deal that, okay, you're like that. Thank you very much. Now that I know where you're coming from, I love you. What to do? I mean, sometimes you can't help these guys, no?
Yeah.
Very easy to say, shut them out from your life. Sometimes you can't.
You can't.
So you just say that, look, I love you, and just leave them and move on. I truly appreciate the fact that you are what you are. My life to change somebody.
No.
Right? My job in my life is to move forward with what is my Svadharma. Okay? I'm going to continue. Your conditioning is such that you're doing what you're doing. So I love you. I mean, what can I do? I really, really love you. And just move on. That's it. Recognize them for where they are, park them and go on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ram, can I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
So, the essence of the Gita, as you've been explaining from the first, chapter is to, ascertain your Svadharma and achieve that. Okay, now as a woman in this day and age, I find that I have multiple roles to play, right? I, I, um, I believe I'm a devoted wife, mother, whatever, but I am driven by my work and my profession, and also these other passions that we have, like our tangent team of 41ers or whatever, multiple things. So is it possible to have more than one Swadharma? Can you, or does it have to be only one purpose in life? And how do you identify what that is?
Wonderful question, Raju, and I'm so glad you asked this question. I think it's a brilliant question that you asked. Okay? What you need to do is that when you create that me time for yourself and you say, okay, this is something that really, really makes me happy. What are the things that make me happy in life? Okay? So you work those 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever number of things that are there. The beauty of this whole concept of Swadharma that he's explained to us is this, that can you then make sure that you take that into all the aspects of your life. I'll give you an example of what I'm saying. Okay. Supposing, for instance, your Svadharma, okay, is to be a completely positive person in life. Okay, that is my Svadharma. For instance, that is my Svadharma. That I've discovered this a couple of years ago. That look, my thing is to be very positive in life. You know, any time, at any situation, anything that is thrown, I'm positive, I'm action oriented. I can't sit and not do stuff. You know, I need to get people to do things to achieve whatever their higher purpose in life is. That is my Svadharma. Can I now bring that into being a husband? Can I now bring that into being a father? Can I now bring that into being a father-in-law? Can I now do that into bringing a friend? Can I do that, as a Rotarian, as a 41er, as an employer, so the whole point is that can you work on what makes you happy in your life, and then can you start bringing that into all the other aspects of your life? You see, those are all manifestations of your life. Those are the roles that we play, Ranju. Okay? Where is the conflict? The conflict is that somebody has told me that a daughter-in-law has to behave like this. And I don't agree. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somebody has said that a secretary has to behave like this. Now, these are all roles that people have defined for us. Okay? And the conflict that happens in our mind is because somewhere there is that disagreement that we have between the roles that we play and the expectations that people have. I'm saying instead of getting into that complete conflict zone, in the role that you're playing, whether it is mother, whether it is daughter-in-law, whether it is mother-in-law, whether it is whatever role that you're playing, friend, student, teacher, businesswoman, whatever it is, can you bring this aspect so that you cut the unhappiness part of it? You know, that you have to perform, you keep performing those roles. Okay, see, don't forget that there are 3 things there. There is a role, there is a responsibility, and there is accountability. Okay? There is a role, there is a responsibility, there is accountability. I'm saying from a responsibility perspective, fine, I don't agree that I need to do this, fair enough, I'll do it, yeah. Why? Because it's my responsibility. Okay, because that is something that I've accepted. When I've accepted this role, there is a responsibility that comes with it, fine, let me do that. But for what I'm accountable, can I bring my Svadharma into that? Okay? As a mother, my accountability lies in making sure that my daughter becomes an extremely confident young lady. That is what I'm accountable for. My responsibility is to make sure that there is a certain amount that is on the table whenever she comes home.
Fantastic.
You with me? So there is a role, there is a responsibility, there is an accountability. Unfortunately, what happens is that this Svadharma aspect is in the accountability part. If you can start bringing it even into the responsibility, great. If you can't, just continue, just discharge that responsibility and get on with it. Sometimes you can't conflict with that. What to do? Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. like you and I are part of the Rotary Club of Bangalore.
Yeah.
I became the secretary of the club. And suddenly I was told that as the secretary of the club, I have to handle some 255 egos. I don't want to do that, yeah. I said, hello, why should I do it? Till I realized 1 minute. This is my responsibility. Okay, so let me just discharge that. This is 365 days, right? Before I know it, 365 days are going to get over. But I'm also accountable for some things in my club. Now let me go ahead and do that. Let me use my Svadharma for that. I'm accountable for those things. Okay? I just grin and bear it and move on. No? Sometimes what to do? There are these, that's what. Nobody can tell me how to deliver what I'm accountable for. That is something that I will decide.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ram, beautifully explained.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ram, and good morning, everybody. It's a fantastic session today.
Today, husband and wife have a lot of questions.
No, not a lot. One each. It's better than asking each other.
No, just joking. Right?
Yeah, Pawan.
Good.
Boss, what I want to, first of all, I want to tell you, because you are taking this session, that I was able to write 5 strengths. Okay. I don't know, the credit of that goes to my teachers and my parents or my English teacher herself, because I don't know, I wrote 5 things. Sometimes it's so difficult to write. But my takeaway in today's session is that what you guided me is to use these 5 in whatever I do. That is what I have learned today. And I'm so eager to go to the office and try and implement it. I'm feeling so charged up to use that. And that's what I wanted to tell you, that is my takeaway today. Thank you, Ram.
So, is it going to be easy, Pankaj? It is not. Let me also assure you this. Okay, it's not going to be easy, right? Let me assure you. Okay. So be prepared for a tough climb, because the comfort zone that we're all, so used to will keep pulling you down there. And that comfort zone is in your mind. It's not outside. Okay. So you've got to keep working on it again and again. Anger is a comfort, Pankaj. When I'm helpless, when I'm not able to do it, and I'm not able to get you to do it, I get angry with you. If something has to be done, Pankaj, and I'm not able to do it, I tell you to do it. And when you don't do it, my anger is actually against my own self, because I'm not able to do it. How can you not do it? Okay, that way, right? So these are comfort zones, and we need to work on that. Get out of that, okay? But do it. I think it's a fantastic thing that you're doing. And let me tell you one thing: if you take 2 or 3 of those strengths, Pankaj, and you make it part of your daily thought process. Okay? What are we doing in this entire process of the Bhagavad Gita? And we'll learn this a little more in the next chapter, of course. But what we're also doing every day is to reaffirm this thought. What am I doing every day? I'm trying to tell you there is something. I'm trying to tell you that there are things that are enabling thoughts. I'm trying to tell you every day that, look, there are thoughts that are not enabling. I'm trying to tell you that, look, you need to start respecting the fact that there is a supreme divinity within you. These are the few recurring things that I'm telling every day, right? In various ways, Krishna is telling us the same things again and again and again. So one of the ways to practice these, Pankaj, is to write it down. And every day, this is what I do even now. I get up in the morning, and before I jump out of bed, I keep repeating myself, I, Ram Kumar Seshu, am a person who perseveres and sees things through. Okay? I, Ram Kumar, like that, I make this part of my strengths. And then that is something that remains with me through the day. Okay? wherever I get any of these, 6 gateways to hell to come in, I try and say, okay, wait, 1 minute. Let me repeat what I am. I want to be that. I don't want to be this, that way.
Wow.
Ram, can I say something?
Please go ahead.
I just remember going back in early 90s, we had a HRD with you in 26 years back, maybe 25 years back. And that time also you had said to identify weakness and strength. But in this 25 years, I recall now, the weakness and strength have changed so much. And the way you are saying and speaking, what you spoke then and what you're speaking now, we have evolved ourselves so much today in life. And I'm so happy for that. And I'm so happy to be a part of this round. I'm so happy. Thank you so much.
Super, super. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ram, just an observation.
Please.
I think in my long years of corporate, there was always a considered conflict between personal values and the goals to achieve. I think whenever I faced a situation of conflict, I put the core value in the forefront. I realized that there was no conflict ever. I think we had to manage the situation. We had to manage people, everything. But I don't think there was ever a need to compromise. Adjust, yes. Compromise, no. I think what you beautifully put today is actually to make things sound less overwhelming. I think whenever we look at the strength, weakness, in fact, I remember even today when I coach somebody, I tell them, can you answer your weakness? You can answer everything. Because we get so overwhelmed by these concepts, by these words, that we actually stop, embracing them in many ways. I think what you beautifully did is to actually make it sound so simple for us. And I think I wish this happened to me at the beginning of my career. And I think so much of it could have been much easier. It is not easy to face conflict and overcome and still live with, I'm blessed with a middle class upbringing. So a lot of things get sorted in some sense. But I think somewhere perhaps a suggestion is that how can we take this to schools and colleges and actually help young, these things like, ethics and business, they sound so cliched, but I think at the core is to make the person right. I think if the person is right, everything else can fall in place. Otherwise you use a word ethics and, it goes into another orbit. But thank you very much. It was such a beautiful session. I think that this recording has to be gone over a couple of times to really bring it back. But I think the small thing like 5 strengths, I think they resonated so beautifully for me. Thank you very much. And my apologies for the bad internet at home. Something happened. I'm not sure what exactly was the issue. But thanks for putting up with that as well. Thank you very much.
Maybe you can switch off your video, Srini.
Yeah.
In the
I think Ram got disconnected. Let's wait.
Ram disappeared.
hello.
Yeah, Ram, you're back.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. When you talked about the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita also teaches us another very, very important thing, Srini. There are 3 levels that you operate with. There are 3 levels that you operate with. The first level that you operate with is at the responsibility level, where you deliver what you're supposed to be delivering. The second level that is known as the ownership level, where you take ownership of something. And then the highest level that you can operate with is at the accountability level, when you take accountability for the actions and the results that you want to perform, okay, or what you want to drive. Whenever the conflict really is that when you get people and you want them to move from responsibility to ownership to accountability, and this is one. And And the only way to move them into the accountability phase is to get them to go back to the corporate values that they as a corporation have defined for themselves. It is only then can they move from responsibility to ownership to accountability. Okay? If as a corporate entity, and it is so sad that these vision, values, purpose statements are really nice, beautiful, 3x3 posters that are put in every boardroom and not really used beyond that. But wherever I work with people, the first thing that I keep telling them is this, that look, let's get to those values, the corporate values. Now, I keep telling people three things as a matter of a joke. I say you can't change the values of the company that you're working with. I mean, if you don't like it, then leave. You can't do anything. These are the values that somebody has decided that we are going to follow as a company. So let's start with that and then work on how can you accomplish your daily tasks on the basis of those values. And you will see a huge jump in accountability. You will see people going from responsibility to ownership to accountability. Therefore, this is a fascinating way even to implement these learnings at work, in a corporate or in life. Wonderful. Any other observations? Any other?
No, but Ram, working with corporate values and working with personal values, very rightly said that you don't like the corporate values, you leave and move on, right? That's one way of looking at it. Many times what happens is corporate values keep evolving with the every change of CEO or this thing. But you have your own values. So how do you get down to sitting down and getting your organizing your values that they're more or less in line with corporate values and work, or do you simply say, no, my values are my values and I'm not going to take this?
So this is what I was explaining to Ranju a little earlier. There is something called responsibility, there's ownership, and there's accountability, right? So the point is that if there is a conflict between the three, and then it's very easy at this stage of our life to tell people that, look, stand up for your values, walk out of that company, and search for another job, and it's easy because we've reached a certain stage in our life today where we can afford to do that. If you leave what you're doing right now, I think it'll take 2, 3, 4 months, but you'll find a job. Okay. But it's very difficult to tell that to a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old or a 23-year-old who's just starting out in life. Because how does this person just quit and up and move in life? You can't do that.
And HDFC too.
Okay. So how do you do that? You can't really give that advice. So you have to remember that sometimes the personal values that you have, okay, and this is something that I tell every young person who comes to us for counseling, saying that the personal values that you have, if there is a conflict between that and the values that are being espoused by your boss, okay, and the values that your company stands for, okay, then you certainly are setting yourself up for a conflict. But the bigger challenge is not the boss. The bigger challenge is the values of the company. Okay? If the values that the company has set down and your values are not in sync with each other, then you have a serious challenge. Okay? And that is the reason why, Rahul, there is this familiar statement that says that people join organizations, but they leave bosses. Okay? People join organizations. Why do they join organizations? Because they think that the values that I have and the values of the organization resonate very well with each other. But then the values that your boss is espousing are what makes you leave that particular boss. Because there is a conflict between the two. So you join organizations, but you leave bosses. Keep that in mind. And therefore, I keep telling bosses that I work with also the same thing. I said, it's your job to align your values with the corporate values. Okay, it doesn't matter where you come from, but you have to very, very quickly do that. Because if you can do that, and that's something that we run very effectively for a number of people, saying, how are you going to align your personal values with the corporate values? Because remember, you have, especially when somebody has just joined in new, Rahul, when you as a boss, you come in as a lateral hire or whatever it is. And I said, look, there is a system. This system will get destroyed. The system is aligned to the corporate values. Now you have to please make sure that your personal values, the way you work, are in alignment with the corporate values. Otherwise, you're going to have really, really serious trouble. And there are millions of examples across the corporate world where we've seen, companies just completely losing focus, teams getting completely destroyed, not going anywhere. Good, Anurag, it's 9:30. So with your permission, can we...
Ram, I had a last question if you have time.
Yes, please go ahead, Sanjay. Go ahead.
You talked about the strength, right?
Yes.
I tend to think that the strength that you believe that you have come from the outside ratification that people have seen you demonstrate that strength, which you didn't know existed. A lot of times people do not even know that they possess a strength that your team tends to think that, okay, you have that strength. So the challenge is that, okay, it's how do you understand that the strength you have is aligned to your Svadharma, as you put it earlier, or that is what you have to build on? Because it is based on external ratification for sure. That's when you understand that strength is there. For example, when you said that you speak well, the question is, do you know you speak well, or is it because other people have come and spoken to you that told you that Ram, you spoke so well, you explained it so well? That's when you understand that, oh, this is my strength. And then you took on right now that as a 21-year-old who joined the job, he's not even aware what his strengths are. It's just a question of experience that you build on that, okay, I'm good at this, and then you start understanding what your strengths really are.
Absolutely. Right? Good point, Sanjay. There is a certain amount of reiteration that happens from the world, okay? But it also depends on who's telling you, Sanjay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, if that person is qualified to tell you, then yes, that makes sense. If the person is not really qualified, then he could delude you.
Possible.
Okay,
possible.
Well, therefore, we, there are psychometric tools that are available now, for instance, which are validated tools that are there. There is this strength finder that we use. I don't think Drin is here today. He's left, I think. But Drin's company, for instance, runs a fantastic assessment tool that they run across the country. It's a very validated tool because on the basis of a series of questions, like I said, you do an audit yourself on the basis of these 26 attributes. There are these assessments that can help you arrive at what your strengths are. So especially if you're a young 21, 22-year-old, 23-year-old, then I certainly believe that, you've got to check out somebody like Drin and say, hey, can you, why 21, 22, even now? I mean, whatever age you are at. It's a good idea for you to check out and say that, look, from an assessment, from a validated psychometric assessment, to say that, hey, these are the strengths that you've got, and these are things that you can work with and stuff like that. So it's a good, so it's possible. But if you recall this is psychometric assessment that's available right now. But then if you recall in the old days, what has also happened to us, Sanjay, just to give a little bit of perspective, we've grown too fast as a country. We've grown too fast as a corporate body. And in the process of this very rapid growth, we've created a lot of, we've not created those building blocks for that growth. I'll give you a case in point. One of our clients is a bank, is a very large public sector bank. And in that bank, it took you time, it took you a certain amount of experience to reach the level of a manager, and then you became a regional manager, and then you became a zonal manager, and then you became a general manager, and then, you went up the ladder, and then finally you became an executive director, and hopefully you were director and the chairman of the company. It took time for you to do that. Okay. Now, what has happened is that because of the rapid expansion in the entire banking system that has happened, you have got people who have joined 6 years ago, 5 years, 6 years ago, who become managers. People who've joined 10 years ago who become, I have no grudge against that. I love the fact that people are moving up the ladder and, they're doing well in life. And that's a good thing. I mean, I have no quarrel with that. But you become a general manager now, but you've not been put through the paces. So you go to a GM in these banks, in these public sector banks, with a proposal saying that, look, earlier when you used, I remember, for instance, in the 90s, when I would approach banks with proposals for whatever things that I was doing, the general manager had the ability to keenly analyze each of those problems, look at my balance sheet, point out all my faults, tell me where I'm going wrong, tell me what I'm doing right. And he could do that. Today, some of these guys don't even know what is a balance sheet. Yeah. Okay. So it's also very important, Sanjay, who is giving you that feedback, and that is something that I'm a little concerned about. If there's somebody like you who's sitting across the table with a young 21-year-old, who puts him through a certain amount of questioning process, and then at the end of it, you say, listen, my friend, I'll tell you what your strengths are. I think that makes sense. If you don't have that ability of getting a Sanjay Kanakia or a Rajiv Mehra or a Babji sitting in front of you to do that, then I would suggest that you go get a proper strengths assessment done, get a psychometric assessment done. That is a far better validation than somebody from the outside telling you, I think your strength is communication, or I think your strength is that, because if that guy is not qualified, then you could get into a delusion and start operating with the wrong thing. Because what people are telling me, Sanjay, when I'm communicating, is that they like the way I communicate. It is the manifestations of that communication exercise that I've done. So they're praising that. So I can't get carried away by that, right? If I am a good communicator, what does it mean? I must communicate in such a way that I've got to get you to take action. Huh? If all my communication is to impress you with either my verbosity or with my so-called knowledge, and you get carried away and you say, wow, what a great thing. What are you doing? You're praising that. But that is not actually my strength. No? My strength as a communicator must be either to resolve a conflict, or must be able to negotiate a great deal, or must be able to get you to take some action. That is the proof of the pudding, no, sir?
That's the example. I'm saying that challenge lies in to understand, look deeper, and find your own strength.
But then the best thing to do is to sit back and say that, look, what are the strengths that I've got? You may be wrong, doesn't matter. But let's start with that whole exercise. We've got so used to pointing out people's mistakes, people's weaknesses, that in the process, we've forgotten what our strengths
are. I want to add something to this.
Please, ma'am.
In this age of digital social media, and we are getting used to instant gratification, that somewhere I feel that we have started celebrating mediocrity, so we are kind of, lost as what is really something good and what is really praiseworthy. Because, anybody posts anything, oh, wow, you're superb, this, that. I think somewhere we have lost that appreciation for the real good things somewhere. And some of us do get carried away by all the praises and all the thumbs up that we receive on social media, probably Facebook or whatever. So I feel it's a very big trap for all of us. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So it's a process of evolution. We will understand, some settling down will happen. There was a joke that I read the other day. When you're putting something out on either an Instagram or a Twitter or a Facebook or a LinkedIn, you can put anything that you feel like. You can put anything you feel like. I had the worst coffee in my life today. That's perfectly all right. You can put anything that you feel like. It's not what you're putting out that is that's important now. You could give one of the most profound statements on earth. That it is good to be humble in life. Humility is a great source of strength. You can make a very, very profound statement like that if you feel like. So it really doesn't matter what you put out. But what is more important, unfortunately, today is the number of likes you're going to get on that, the number of shares that you're going to get on that, the number of comments that you're going to get on that. So you could make the most profound statement or you could make the most inane statement. It doesn't really matter. You could put I could, send this photograph of mine sitting like this with this white kurta of mine. And it's not important that I'm putting that out. What's more important is everybody, hey, lovely kurta Ram, great kurta Ram, fantastic kurta Ram, great, thumbs up, hey, fantastic, what a nice kurta, where did you buy the kurta? Excuse me. What is the purpose of putting this photograph out is completely lost. It is more important the number of likes I get. And that is sad because what is actually happening today is that a lot of people are getting into this obsessive compulsive disorder, of just posting stuff at random. And if you don't get those likes, if you don't get those, whatever. So I must share something interesting. I did an experiment some time back. I won't tell you who, but I'll tell you what I did. So I picked up about 20 friends at random. Okay. And I started commenting on everything that they put out. Everything that they put out 3 times a day, 4 times a day. I used to say, my God, oh, wow, this, that, all that rubbish I would put out. And then I stopped. And after some time, they started, pasand nahi aaya, theek nahi laga. So you're more interested in the comment rather than what you're putting out. So that's there. Yeah. So this is something that we have to be careful about. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll close this session as Anurag mentioned a little while ago. We will close our program. Tomorrow is the 17th chapter. The 17th chapter is again a very, very interesting chapter. It's a small chapter. It's again not a very large chapter. Like all of these chapters are pretty small. So 17th is again another small. It's 28th. It's just 28 verses. Again, it's very interesting because he is now on the verge of completing the entire Bhagavad Gita. What he does in the 17th is that he kind of any of the loose ends that are there, he tries to kind of quickly tie it up. He explained to us about the gunas in chapter number 14 at great length. He goes back into great length in the 17th chapter on the gunas. He talks about food and sacrifice and tapas and tyag and how the gunas affect each one of them. So today he told us these 26 things that you can practice as strengths. What should you be careful? And then he's going to continue with that journey in the 17th when he talks about the fact that, look, how are you going to recognize these and how can you start becoming more and more and more a person of calmness so that you work on your Svadharma. So we'll catch you tomorrow, 7:45 as usual. Om Tat Sat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Thank you, Ram.